Let's meet the panel, shall we? Please welcome executive producer Greg Plageman. Executive producer and creator Jonathan Nolan. The strong, silent man of action, John Reese, Jim Caviezel. The computer genius, the man behind the machine, and a guy who can really rock some sideburns. As Harold Finch, Michael Emerson. And as Detective Lionel Fusco, who gets in the middle of all this, please welcome Kevin Chapman. And just a note, Taraji P. Henson is shooting a film in Atlanta, so unfortunately she can't be with us tonight. She's here in spirit. Everybody, have a seat, please. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for doing this. Very excited to be here. What I'm wondering is, Jim, what does it feel like to play this kind of strong, silent man of action who can basically break a man in two with his bare hands? So, Jim, can you speak to creating your character and
Mine came by way of the Count of Monte Cristo and Kiefer Sutherland. I was in London doing The Prisoner, and I was with Brian Mann and my agent, and we were, Kiefer came over and said, I love the Count of Monte Cristo, and they were doing the last episode of 24.
Okay.
And then this volcano blew up in Iceland, and we couldn't get out. And every night I would meet up with Kiefer, and we hung out, and about the 7th night I turned to Brian and said, you know, if you ever find another 24, let me know. And sure enough, within a few months, with the work between him and Hildy Gottlieb, they found this show that Jonah had written. And so you could say that this all came about by a volcano that started all this business.
That is one of the best casting stories I've ever heard in my life. That's fantastic. And Kiefer Sutherland, there's like a guest star in your story. So Kevin, how did you come to be cast in the show?
Well, I was looking at the paper and they had an ad for the lucky guy thing. And I filled out the application and no. It's funny, I worked with Greg on Cold Case. I did a movie with Jim called Unknown that I don't think anyone ever saw. And I worked on Lost, but had never had any scenes with Michael or with Jim in the film. So it was kind of a weird thing when I come in. I was kind of like, I know you, but I really kind of don't. And,
So can we take a minute and talk about some of the great guest stars you've had this season? Because one person asked me, and I think it was a really astute note, was there a little sexual chemistry between Reese and Paige Turco's Fixer character? Wow. Jim?
I felt a certain energy.
Are you hoping she'll be asked back again next season?
Well, that might be above my pay grade.
Okay.
Check cleared.
That's right.
Jim, have there been any stories that were your particular favorite so far? Now that you've done a whole
Careful,
season?
Jim, all the writers are here.
I love them all.
They're all my children.
All right, then maybe I should ask the two of you this. What's been the biggest challenge of playing your characters and the biggest reward?
Mine? God. Trying to keep up with the pace of the show is a challenge in itself. But that's also one of the greatest parts of the job. the challenge. Can we get this scene? I always say what we do is like putting a square peg into a circular hole, and we have a little bit of time, and that to me is why I get up and work every day. It's just the high of accomplishing that.
And Jim, to say that your stoic quality it brings so much to the role, and it was first a little confusing for me, but then as I watched more episodes, you realize this guy really has a lot of heart, and I'm just wondering, are you hoping there will be either a romantic entanglement, or that there will be something else where, I mean, this was a pretty emotional episode for Reese, or do you just prefer the breaking people in half with your bare hands? Which is fine.
Well, they might put a judo girl in the show that I would respect it when she kicked my ass. No, I'm sure that those things, always hopeful. I mean, you've stumped me.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking about what he said, and I'm saying they might slap me if I say too much, but I really appreciate going to work with these guys every day. This is and the writing staff, just first-class people, and I'm very, very fortunate to being able to work on this show. I've tried to take these guys to hockey games, and they still don't tell me too much. So, yes, I'm hopeful like you, but you never know.
So you're telling us you've tried to bribe them and they won't tell you anything?
Yes.
Okay.
I need that dialogue. I need to get ahead of the curve a little bit, but I really, really, one thing about doing this show in New York City, and they'll tell you this, literally in the middle of the episodes, people will walk up to me and they're like, "Hey, Jim Caviezel, I love your effing show." And I said, "Well, that's great. You're in it right now." So if the New Yorkers like it that much, we're doing something right.
That's the truth. That's really...
The boundary between our fictional world and the real world that we're working in, it's really porous. And people are wandering into shots, and they don't, sometimes they're miffed at us, because we're a large company, we tend to take over neighborhoods, but they're not always happy about that, and not always agreeable.
Because they're New Yorkers.
Right, and they're unimpressed. Like trying to keep ladies in Brighton Beach from coming into the camera's view who don't speak that much English. That's a diplomatic challenge. And then you get some gal saying, "Why I should walk in street? You come here with your cameras and your garbage."
How about this one? "Reese, you stop shooting gun." "I try to sleep." This is in the middle of the day. I wonder what she does at night.
Reese had a conversation with Fusco on the corner of Lexington Avenue, and it was a private conversation in a public place, so we were probably 18 inches from each other.
Okay.
And an old lady walked right between us and hit me with an elbow on the way by.
There's a real marked difference, I think, from the time we shot the pilot, and there was a relative anonymity in the streets of New York, and then just when we came back for the finale, I was crossing the street with Jim, and this guy comes up. It was Thursday night, I think, and he said, "Man, I gotta get home, the show's on tonight." And he goes, "But you just gotta tell me one thing. How did you go from being the Messiah to this kick-ass assassin?" And Jim just said, Jim's like, "Thank you very much," and then just like it happened like 12 times a day. Like, it was crazy. It was a totally different ballgame. It was
One particular take when we were shooting the pilot, we're walking out of the car or across the street, and this guy walked over to him because he's like a big fan of Lost, and I had the big old beard on, dressed as a bum,
right.
and he was talking to him, and I grabbed him by the shirt and said, "Not today." Of course,
And he backed away with a look on his face like, Emerson goes around with a homeless bodyguard?
But this is New York, so, you know, when Reese's open up a can on certain people, you hope that none of these New Yorkers are going to get involved, because sometimes they'll come over and open a can on you. I have to have eyes on the back of my head, because, you know, they could come in. I remember this one particular scene, well, it was the pilot.
Same bit, where you punched out the two bodyguards.
Your two bodyguards.
And the cameras were far, far away, so it would have been hard to tell that people were filming anything. And people were screaming, and one lady said, "You need to call the police."
All right, so Jim, have you had a lot of fight training now for the show?
Oh my, I have the best. I have the best team. I have a group of select Navy SEALs that train me, and guys that have, you know, trained with the Mossad. And I also have great stunt choreographers that, you know, are teaching me. And the guy that I work with, Tony, obviously is a 7th degree black belt. And so, and then, you know, just every now and then backing up into a holding crate and twisting my back, or getting a weapon in my face, or going left when I should have gone right. You kind of learn on the job.
You have no visible scars, which I admire.
Yeah.
And in all seriousness, so can you break a man in two with your bare hands now?
It's all fiction. When I saw him limping, I actually felt bad for him. I thought Michael Emerson walked with a limp. He was so limp. But then he came over to my house one day, and I realized after I had hugged him that he wasn't. So I thought maybe my Jesus powers had... Beautiful thing.
Okay, so I have my question is about the relationship between Fusco and Reese, and Fusco and Finch, because we all know that when it comes to dealing with Fusco, Reese can be a little sadistic. And from the episode that we just saw, Finch was also a little dismissive toward him. So what do you guys personally, and also you, the two of you, like the relationship between them, how do you think the dynamic will develop in the future? Will they become sort of more, maybe closer? Because you guys have saved each other's lives time and time again now.
Okay, you have to let them answer now.
Sorry.
Wait, I got a quick caveat before we answer. Jim, if she asks about the Pepsi can thing, say nothing.
I don't know. I have to think 2 words, tough love.
I don't think Finch is happy about having Fusco on board. It's not part of the original plan, and he's a careful planner. So he's a liability. He's occasionally useful.
See what I have to deal with every day?
And the nice lady, thank you for being patient.
Hi. I have 2 questions. One for Jim. I notice you're wearing distinctly un-Reese garb. And I was wondering, being in the energy of New York, is it hard to be the strong, silent type?
Well, it tends to work for the character, I guess. And, you know, there's a lot of quiet people that walk around New York. It's just the loud ones that get heard more often.
And then for both of you, did you two know each other at all before, or is your personal relationship growing as, or an acting relationship growing as the characters are growing?
Michael Emerson?
Yeah, both of you.
Oh, I can't help but love this guy, but I can't tell him that.
We had never met until the first scene we did on the pilot, and I was late arriving, so it was near the end of the pilot, and it was the first time I'd met him. But it's working out.
The lady in the green sweater.
Since you just met each other on the set, and I just remarked to my husband on the way here that I thought that Ben Linus would be the only person who could just have the nerve to boss Jesus around. So I thought that was pretty awesome. But I'm wondering, what did you think of each other before? You knew about each other, I'm sure, but what was your impression of your work before that?
Boy, we're really Oh, I knew he was a great talent, and I knew he knew I was a great talent.
Really, what else is there to say?
I have to interject. Sorry, I was just wondering, when you both got the pilot script, what did you first think when you got the pilot script?
I knew it. I read it, and this reads like a film.
Time for 2 more questions. I love it. It's like all women. No guys have questions. All right, the ladies like the show. This nice lady in the light blue shirt here, or gray shirt. I'm sorry. Yes, that's you, young lady. Yes.
Mr. Caviezel, I just want to let you know you inspire me to be a better person every day, and I wanted to tell you that. You are so funny.
Don't tell anybody this. I might get offered comedies, and that would strain our relationship.
Well, I wanted to tell you that too. That's all.
Okay. This lady has her hand up right here in the middle. Yes, you.
I love this show, like everybody here, but sometimes if I think about it too much, I get a headache. And I just was wondering, it's also, obviously New York is the, one of the big stars of the show, but will we ever see, because we know CBS loves the franchise, POI Los Angeles, or POI Minneapolis, or POI Atlanta?
We're going to need a vacation at some point.
Actually, someone asked me, another fan asked me, would there ever be a 2-hour movie?
I've said this from the get-go.
I stole it from Jim.
I mean, it reads like you could. I mean, it could be anywhere in the world.
Jonah, Greg, would you care to divulge anything?
Our lips are sealed.
All right.
I think it's a good idea.
Why don't we
Michael?
just focus on a great TV show?
Yeah. No, we're trying to make
Which
a
we
movie. We're trying to
appreciate.
make a movie every week. I mean, that's the sort of production style and values that we're trying to bring to it. I mean, the show's expensive. All the money's up on the screen, except for the small portion that we embezzle. But it's, it's really, we're trying to get, action and, a lot of exterior shooting and a lot of practical stuff, and we managed to do it every week.
It looks terrific.
So after 4 seasons, it's a great idea.
I like the way you think, Mr. Caviezel. Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank everyone for being here today. Thank you, guys.